Welcome! Today, we're diving into tsunami preparedness. We're going to move beyond just worrying and actually build a concrete, life-saving plan for you and your family.
So let's just jump right in with a question that really gets to the heart of a huge and I mean incredibly dangerous misconception. When we think of tsunamis, our minds go straight to those giant movie-style waves. But the reality is, the deadliest threat is often something else entirely. And believe it or not, this is the answer: knee-deep water. It sounds almost ridiculous, right? But when that water is moving at tsunami speeds, it has enough raw force to sweep an adult clean off their feet. We are talking about a truly unbelievable amount of power packed into what looks like a minor flood. And this is exactly why it's so deadly. Just look at that jump. When the water's at your ankles, the risk is pretty low. But the second that water hits your knees, the mortality rate just skyrockets to over 70%. It's a terrifying picture of why you can never, ever underestimate the power of fast-moving water. Okay, so surviving a tsunami really begins long before a wave ever even appears on the horizon. Let's get into the first critical step: understanding the warnings and, most importantly, having a solid plan. Now, it is absolutely critical that you know the difference between these two official alerts. A tsunami watch means, hey, get prepared, a threat is possible, based on an earthquake somewhere. But a tsunami warning, well, that's a direct command. It means dangerous, imminent, a destructive wave has been confirmed, and you need to evacuate now. Here's the thing, though. For a tsunami that's generated locally, where the earthquake is just offshore, you're not going to have hours. You're going to have minutes. And in those cases, you simply can't wait for an official alert. Your best, and honestly, sometimes your only warning, is going to come directly from the earth and the ocean. So you have to commit these 3 signs to memory. First, you feel the ground shaking so hard it's tough to even stand, and it lasts for 20 seconds or more. Second, you look, and the ocean is suddenly pulling way, way back, exposing the seafloor. Or third, you listen for a deep, roaring sound, kind of like a freight train. If you experience even one of these, that's your signal. Don't think, don't wait. Just evacuate immediately. So when you evacuate, where are you actually going? Well, these are your target numbers for safety. Your goal is to put distance and elevation between you and the coast. You want to aim for at least 1 mile inland or 100 feet above sea level. Think of that as your minimum safe zone. Look, your family's survival really hinges on a plan that's so well rehearsed it becomes muscle memory. You need to know if you're in an evacuation zone. Map out your main route and a backup route to high ground. Set a crystal clear meeting point for your family. And then you have to practice it, so that when a crisis hits, you're not trying to think, you're just acting. And a huge part of that plan is a dedicated go kit, something you can just grab without wasting a single precious second. Beyond the obvious things like water and a first aid kit, remember items like a hand crank radio for updates and copies of your essential documents. Just make sure it's packed and you know exactly where it is at all times. All right, we've planned, we've prepped. Now let's talk about those critical moments during the event itself, when every single second counts and you have to put that plan into action. If you are anywhere near the coast and you feel that quake, your first move is to protect yourself. Drop, cover, and hold on. But the very instant, the second that shaking stops, your priority completely shifts. That earthquake was your warning. Now it's time to move to high ground, immediately. This next rule is a hard one, but it is absolutely non-negotiable. You have to abandon your belongings. This tragic story from the 1960 Chile tsunami is just a grim reminder. Ramon Atala survived the massive earthquake, but he went back to his warehouse for his property. He was lost to the waves. Things can be replaced. You can't. Now, this next point gets at one of the most fatal mistakes people make. They see the first wave hit and recede, and they think the danger is over. But a tsunami isn't a single event. It's what's called a wave train, a whole series of surges that can last for hours. And you have to remember, the first wave is very often not the biggest or the most destructive one. This timeline from Hilo, Hawaii is such a stark reminder of that fact. The warnings went out in the evening. The first smaller waves arrived around midnight, and some people probably thought the worst was over. But it was the third massive wave, hours later, that caused the most devastation and loss of life. That is why you have to stay on high ground. What if you're trapped? What if you can't evacuate inland? There are some last-ditch efforts that have saved lives. First, go vertical. climb to the fourth floor or higher of a really sturdy, reinforced concrete building. If you do get swept into the water, grab onto anything that floats, a log, a door, whatever, to stay above all that churning debris.
Surviving the waves themselves is a monumental challenge for sure, but the danger is not over once the water goes back out. You could be returning to a completely transformed and really hazardous landscape.
This is so important. Do not go back into the evacuation zone until local authorities give the official all clear. And listen, a cancellation of the tsunami warning from some national center is not the same thing. You have to wait for the local emergency managers on the ground to say it is safe to return.
The world you go back to will be full of hidden dangers. I'm talking about downed power lines that could be electrifying standing water or the contaminated floodwaters themselves. Not to mention damaged buildings and gas leaks that pose a constant threat long after the waves are gone.
You know, we've covered warnings, plans, and actions. But when you really look at every tsunami event and you analyze who survives and who doesn't, it really all boils down to a single crucial element. It's all about one thing: reaction time. How quickly you recognize the danger and physically move out of harm's way is the single greatest factor in your survival. Every other piece of preparation we've talked about is designed to maximize this one thing: your ability to act without a single moment of hesitation. Which, of course, brings us right back to you. Knowing the risk, having that route mapped out, building that go kit. It's not just some checklist you tick off, it's your lifeline. It's what buys you the seconds that make all the difference in the world. So, is yours ready?
Please, don't wait for the earthquake. Don't wait to hear a siren. Your preparation starts right now. Use the tools that are available right here on this page to take charge of your situation, build your family's plan, and protect the people you care about most.